Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Conscious Club podcast. My name is Arij, and today I am not filming a video version of the podcast. Usually I have a video version that goes up on my YouTube channel along with the audio. But today I'm not doing that because I just straight up didn't feel like it. And I was in the process of setting up my tripod. And then I was like, you know what? I just really don't want to be on camera today. And I let myself be okay with that. And so here I am just making it easy for myself to show up and just allowing myself to just record audio. So yeah, welcome. So today's podcast episode is, I don't know why I said it like that, podcast episode. I am in a weird, stinky mood a little bit right now. I just feel very squeezed, which is interesting. There's a lot of momentum growing in my life right now, which the way that I define that is there's just a lot of new things coming in, new opportunities, new projects. There's just a lot that I am starting to fill up my plate with. And it feels really, really good because for the first time in my life, everything that I'm filling my plate with is something that I truly actually want to do. So it's very, very exciting. But at the same time, I am not that used to having so many things on my plate at once. And so there's parts of me that feel squeezed. And in those moments when I feel squeezed, I tap into my energy work expertise and I just get myself to invoke the feeling of spaciousness in my body. And it's very hard to describe how I do that. It's just like very energetic. I just make myself feel spacious and I hold that and I've been practicing that feeling whenever I feel squished. But anyway, I woke up feeling a little squished today. And so I'm in the process of stabilizing the spaciousness feeling. But all of that leads into today's podcast topic, which is again about routine. So a few episodes back, I made an episode about how to routine if you're someone who hates routine. And today I just want to add to that conversation, but also blend it with my own personal experience over the past month as someone who went from 0 to 100 with routine in 4 weeks. I literally had no schedule. I didn't really have a task list. I had nothing like that planned out. Just a month ago, the way I was operating in my life, it was very much just like whatever shows up in front of me next is what I'm going to work on. But I didn't really plan ahead of just the current present moment. And then now, 4 weeks later, I have a daily schedule that I follow, like a daily routine. And I have a weekly routine set up as well for myself. And I've been flowing with that, and surprisingly I've been loving it a lot, and which is why I want to talk about it today, because I want to bring in some personal human to human, heart to heart experiential conversation. Does that make sense? Because I know firsthand how limiting and annoying routine and structure and schedules can be, or can feel like they're going to be, which is what makes us feel really resistant to implementing them in our lives. But for me, it's like now that I've done it, I don't think I can ever go back to how I was doing things, because there is just such a grounded sense of safety and stability that permeates my existence now because of the structure and the routines that I've set up. And I wouldn't trade this feeling for anything else right now, because it just feels so good after being like swimming in the chaos, so to speak, over the last 3 years. And right before I get into my personal experiences, I do want to make a nuance. Basically, I don't believe that everybody needs routine and structure in the same way that I do. I think that just my personality and like the way that my brain works, it feels really, really supported by routine. And this podcast episode is for those who also know deep down that they're somebody who would be very, very supported in their life and in their creative endeavors and in their business endeavors by implementing routine, but you just haven't done it yet for whatever reason. This podcast episode is it's not for people who are doing just fine without a routine. It's not for people who thrive on the flowiness, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there are two different types. There's not more than two, but there's different types of people. And the people that I'm speaking to today are the people who will thrive off of routine. And for those of you that won't thrive off of routine, first of all, I would get you to ask yourself the question, how does it make me feel when I don't have routine? Like, do I feel safe and secure in myself? Do I feel safe and secure and confident in what I'm doing? And if it's yes, then you probably don't really need to implement any more organization or structure into your life. But if you answer no and you feel like you don't feel as confident as you could feel, or you don't feel as safe and secure and stable as you could feel, then perhaps continue listening and start playing with routine. So basically, all of this started, I guess I'm gonna format this more like a story and just see what wants to be shared within this story like format. So go back a few months. Right now we're in mid-April, so go back end of February. End of February is my birthday, and I had a great birthday, but the week immediately after my birthday, I had how do I even explain it? It feels like I just like went into the underworld for a week, and I was just really thinking about and processing all of the areas of my life that are not up to my own personal standards yet. And not from a perfectionism way, but more from the way of like, you know what? I really need this area to be solid for me to do what I want to do in my life, for me to be able to contribute what I want to contribute at the levels I want to contribute. I need these areas of my life to be solid. And one of those areas was financial, because if you've been in my world or listening to me or whatever, you probably know that processing money stuff, financial empowerment stuff is like literally the top of it's like my main overarching quest right now. And so in the week after my birthday, I just felt like all of the negative feelings that I could feel in all of their depths about not having the level of money and resources that I desire so that I could go ahead and do the things that I want in my life. And I just felt so bad about myself, and I really let myself go into the feelings of like feeling like a victim to life, and I just let myself feel it all. And after a few days, I was like, okay, a part of me was like, all right, I'm bored of this. Now what can we do about this? So it was like an excavation, I would say, of all of the feelings that are like deep down buried within me about how it feels to feel limited by not having financial resources. and the feelings of feeling constricted and not free. It was an excavation for a few days of just like what it actually feels like. I let it all come up. I felt it in my body. I cried for like the entire week straight. And then once the storm passed, then I was on to stage 2, which was like, okay, now I know how much this has been affecting me. What do I want to do about it? And in stage 2, it was about coming out of or holding my own hand and gently guiding myself out of the victimhood state and moving into the state of I am the creator of my reality and I get to choose how I move forward. Now knowing all of this information, and how do I want to move forward? Like, what is in my capacity right now? What can I do to make this a better situation for myself? And immediately my mind went towards, okay, since your business isn't getting you the levels of income that you truly desire and need to thrive, perhaps we should get a full-time job, just like a regular, stable 9-to-5 type of thing. And this was very, very triggering to confront because I am just very anti 9-to-5 just because I'm someone who values freedom so much. I had a life situation growing up, like my childhood and my teenage years. I had next to no personal freedom. And so when I came out of that environment, it became like my top priority to feel as free as possible and to know that I can do whatever I want to do. And so that made me very resistant to the concept of being in a 9-to-5 job because it was like giving away my freedom to another person or another company in exchange for money. And this was then compounded by my experiences with jobs like that in the past. And the one that I did a summer job, it was only 4 months, but it was legit the worst 4 months of my life. Like my soul felt like it was just dead. It was just such a sad time. It was very, very menial tasks that I did from 9 to 5, and it was not creative at all. In the workplace culture was very depressing. Most of the people in there were depressed. The vibes were just very, very off, and that experience further solidified my resistance to wanting to work a 9 to 5. So when I graduated from university in 2019, I already had my YouTube thing going on, and then I was like, okay, I don't want to go straight into full-time. I think I did talk about this in the last episode, but in 2019 I was like, okay, well, I don't want to go into full-time computer science work, so I'm just going to do part-time things. And I got a bunch of part-time things. And then I launched my coaching business the next year in 2020, and I still have it. Kind of, it's morphed a lot, but I'm still doing that kind of work, but it hasn't yielded the level of financial stability that I need to thrive. And so all this processing a few weeks ago, I was like, okay, well, since my business isn't working, I guess I'll just get a full-time job, because also I perceive that back in 2019 when that split happened, when I confronted that fork in the road, and I was like, okay, I am going to not go into a full-time job now. I'm just going to get I'm going to get part-time jobs. I added this thing in that decision back then where I was like, I'm going to get part-time jobs until I have to get a full-time job. So when I walked down the path of not going full-time, I put in a little condition for myself that created this expectation that I am going to do these part-time jobs or do my own thing, but at some point I probably won't be able to do that anymore, and then I'll go back to a full-time job and continue on like the path that I'm supposed to be walking on, you know? And so because I did that, I think at the time I just did that to feel safer, just being like, okay, I'm not going to get a full-time job now, but if I ever need to, I can still get one in the future. I put that in to feel safer with that, but now, like years later, it came back to haunt me because I realized that there's been, let's see if I can describe this properly. It feels like there's been this open tab running or open process running in my head that just takes up a lot of CPU, just a lot of processing power. Where on one part of me, I've been working on my business and trying to make my own things work, but then another part of me also really focusing on having to get a full-time job at some point. And so my focus has been not fully in my business because I've just assumed that it's not. There's like been a part of me that has assumed that it's not going to work out and that I'm going to have to get a full-time job at some point. And so it was diverting my energy in a way, or it was leaking my energy in a way, because I thought I was working on my business and showing up fully. But because that deeper layer of me didn't believe that I could succeed in it, I wasn't really showing up fully. And I had this other process and tab open where I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to get a full-time job at some point. Anyway, when the whole birthday thing happened the week after, held up processing, I just went down. It's almost like I revisited that fork in the road, and I was like, okay, let's do the other thing that I've been waiting to do for all these years, apparently, which is get a full-time job. And I worked through the trigger of that, and for a few days I just worked on getting myself into a complete mode of acceptance with getting a full-time job. I even started looking at different job posting websites, and I started plotting out what kind of jobs I could even get from, or like what kind of jobs I could get based on my skills and experience and education, and then also what kind of jobs would I even want to do. So I like really started going down that road and accepting that this might be how I have to move forward. But one of the things that came along in that acceptance was that the fact that I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to hold a full-time job, for the sole reason that when you have a full-time job, you have to operate on a daily routine and a schedule. Like your job starts at the same time every day, ends at the same time every day. And because I haven't been operating in any sort of routine or structure, and I've just been going with the flow and doing what the moment calls for, I really felt like, oh, I don't know if I can hold a full-time job, even if I got it. And that then started my ascending into structure and bringing routines back into my life, because I was like, okay, I'm going to like look for a job, and I am going to, like do what it takes to get a job. But at the same time, I need to be realigning my daily schedule and my routines so that I can actually hold it. And for that, I need to implement some sort of structure and routine into my life again. And then weeks go by and there's no like job postings or anything that really stand out to me. Like nothing, there's nothing really happening. And I also know from experience that whenever I have had jobs in the past, they've always come through an invitation from someone else. Someone else kind of just like helps me get that job. So there's a surrender piece to getting a job for me that I enjoy playing with. It's like this belief, like when I actually need a job and when it's meant for me to be in putting my life force towards a specific project or company, I am going to be automatically directed there. So I started implementing a sense of surrender to that. And I was like, I need to dissolve any grippiness I have towards this incoming job. And so in the process of that, I was like, okay, well, what can I do in the meantime then? What can I put my time to? What can I, And then this is like a month after the initial processing started, the week after my birthday. I was like, wait, you know what I just realized? I just realized that I have not been showing up to my own business in the ways that I actually could. And what if I just started treating my own business actually as a full-time job? Like if my business was a company and I was hired by someone else and someone else was counting on me, how would I show up in this business? If someone was actually paying me right now as an employee to get this thing going, get this thing running, how would I show up? And that was like a massive paradigm shift for me in my business, because all of a sudden I had this like newfound motivation, newfound reason why. I was able to link it to all of these feelings of like, just like it's like solution. It's a solution. It's a solution to the problem I was facing just weeks ago, where I felt super financially disempowered. Now here I was like almost like a month later, and I realized like, wait, maybe it's not that I have to get a full-time job for someone else. Maybe all of this has just been to prep me to start showing up full-time for myself and start putting in like the actual amount of hours that I truly deep down desire to put in to make this thing work. And that just has changed everything. That was a month ago now from today. And that's when I really got really, not intense, but just really motivated and inspired to have daily routine and weekly routine. And the reason I am able to maintain it is because I have a very clear reason why I'm doing it. And that reason why, or like the direction that I'm moving in, excites me a lot. For me to feel financially empowered through my own personal work, even if, like, by the way, like I also have a part-time job right now working for my friend Anya, doing some back-end stuff in her business and helping her with her business. So I have that, but to be even that, like that still feels like an extension of my work because it's within my field. It's not something super random. Like if I went and got a full-time job, I was using this example with my friends last week when I was talking to them about this. One of the job postings that was like kind of interesting to me, but then it wasn't, it was related to like marketing and social media, branding, and all of that kind of stuff, digital branding, whatever, etc., for a boutique hotel in Toronto. And I just was like, okay, this sounds interesting, but do I really want to put my life force into building up a boutique hotel? And when I asked myself that question, I was like, no, I really don't, because there's nothing wrong with it. But it's just for me personally, I just know that I need to have a vision that is really, really big. Otherwise, I will feel depressed. Like I need to just building up a boutique hotel isn't a big enough vision. I need something that will change society to work on. And so my own work, like what I do with Overflow and just my coaching and things like that, which right now is about, actually I'll get to that in a sec. I need it in order for me to implement routine and structure and like really enjoy my life. I have to be doing it for a vision that I actually care about. And so the answer to that was like, okay, then I just need to apply all of these things to my own vision. And now I am able to show up daily to a daily routine, a weekly routine. And just to say, in case you're wondering, my daily routine, I decided that I don't like waking up super early. I prefer late nights. So I sleep anywhere between like 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., depending on my mood and how night owly I feel. And then I wake up between like 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. And then I start work. I want to make another podcast episode about playing with my definitions of work, but that will come later. But okay, for the purposes right now, I start my work around noon, and then I just work for the rest of the day and take breaks in between. By the rest of the day, I usually work straight, with breaks in between, but I work until like 6 or 7, then I have dinner, and then I usually do more things after dinner. And not because I feel like I have to or that's part of my routine, but it's just that I'm excited about what I'm doing and it feels easy to just continue, and I'd rather just do that instead of anything else. But yeah, and then for my weekly routines, I have a podcast that I upload every week. I have 2 days of part-time work that I do for Anya. And then I have all these like projects that I'm in the process of working on. Like I have all these digital products that I want to set up a store for on my site so that it could be like another passive income source. And then I have Overflow, which has basically daily calls. And there's just a lot of structure in my life now, and I love it because it gives my days a purpose. Like it makes me feel okay. So one of the things that I really, really value, like one of the sensations that I personally really value, is the sensation of forward movement, or the sensation of like progression. And when I have a routine and when I have like a task list that's all set up, which by the way, another thing that's really helped me in this is setting myself up on Notion, which is a productivity tool and app. And I just got an affiliate partnership with Notion, so if you want to check it out, the version I use is free right now, and the version you'll probably use is free too. But if you happen to go for their paid version, if you use my link, then I'll get 50% of your subscription for the first year. So that's cool. But Notion is something that I found a few months ago, like as I was starting to implement more structure, and I just love it because of how customizable it is for the way that my brain personally works and how I like to organize things. And anyway, that has been really fun and helpful for implementing structure because I have my entire brain basically in that digital space. Like every task, every project that I want to do, it's just allowing me to create this landscape of my work, especially like future work. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, before I was just working in the moment, so whatever I really felt like doing. Oh, I forgot to mention that another part of my daily routines is I've been like posting on Instagram and Substack and stuff almost daily, which is like coming up with a new idea, but all of it feels so easy. But I'll get back to the ease aspect of it again too in a bit, if I remember. But yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, so Notion, just having like an online productivity task management thing, it's allowing me to create this like whole landscape where instead of having just like one thing on my plate and in my awareness, I can see the different projects that I have the project that I'm working on right now, but then I have like 5 other projects that are gonna be happening, and I can already see them. And that's kind of why at the beginning of this episode I said it feels like sometimes feeling squished because I'm not used to having this much on my plate, is because like my Notion, it just shows me like all that is current. Like, I'm holding a lot more than I was. I'm holding a lot more project ideas, and even though I'm still playing with the feeling of like spaciousness and not feeling squished by all of these things that I'm holding, at the same time, I'm having so much fun because I am able to tap into that sensation of forward movement every single day. Every time I check off a task, I feel like I've moved forward, and it just is so nice because that feeling of forward movement, when you keep it up, it also begins to create this sense of momentum, and momentum is also something that I really, really enjoy feeling, because momentum makes things that felt effortful before, it makes them feel easy. And I actually have a Substack post that I wrote about this called Transforming Effort into Ease. And it really is true. It's really happening. I mean, just a month ago, it felt so hard for me. There was so much more discomfort around holding these routines, showing up to social media. Like, it was just like some more sticky because I wasn't used to it. But now, a month later, it's like everything is flowing. Like, it's just flowing. It's like I'm in daily flow state because I know exactly what I want to do next. I'm excited about what I'm going to do next. Like, I don't put anything on my list, my task list, or my routines that I don't actually want to do, which is also a key. I started easy, so none of it feels like overwhelming. I've been building up my routines over time. This is what I spoke about in my How to Routine podcast episode a few podcasts back. And it's just like everything just feels so like silky and buttery, and like my days just, there's also like the sense of stability and safety, and it feels really, really good. It just feels so nice to feel like this, and to, I don't know, like I feel like I'm also optimizing my time so much, where because I know exactly what I want to do next, there's less time spent trying to figure out what to do next. And then therefore I move forward faster too, because of how everything's laid out. And I'm still like, I also made a podcast episode a few episodes back called The Slow Living Lifestyle. I'm still applying the sensation of slow living. Like it's still, I am enjoying going fast when it comes up, but I'm not attached to going fast. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, I'm going fast just naturally by the things that I want to do anyway. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's like, I'm not forcing myself to go fast. And so in my actual day-to-day, as I flow from one task to another, it's a very relaxed pace. But when you zoom out, like, and you look at what I did in a week, it just feels like I'm moving really fast, which is really cool. But yeah, I think that's all I really want to share in this episode. It's just like been so amazing for me. Like, it's been the missing piece for me when it comes to my daily life. It's just infusing all of this, also this confidence in myself and this self-trust. Like, before, if I had a project idea, because I was only doing one thing at a time, I was like, okay, well, I don't have time to do this project right now, so I'm not going to pay attention to it. And then it would just like go away. I would lose the idea, I would forget about it, and it would never come into fruition. But now I have a system set up where if I'm working on something and then I have another really cool project idea, I just drop it into my Notion workspace. And then when I do have space, I can revisit it and it's not lost. And then therefore I'm actually creating and materializing my visions on a more frequent basis, which is cultivating a newfound sense of confidence and self-trust and sense of like capability. Oh, and that's the other thing, right? Like, I feel so much more capable and so much more responsible for my life and capable to hold that responsibility. It just feels like I finally feel like I'm in control of my life again, which is so nice, because as much as I honor the mystery of life and the chaos of existence, and it is necessary to be in those places sometimes, but for me, it's like in my day-to-day, I really do like having a direction that I'm going in. And some people might enjoy just open-ended play, but for me, I really like direction and I like progression. I like feeling like I'm building something over time. And routine and structure just helps me do that so much. I can't do that. I can't feel those feelings without having some sort of routine and structure, like without having some sort of agreement that I've made with myself to show up in certain ways at certain times and things like that. So yeah, I'm just going to pause for a sec and see if there's anything else that I wanted to share in this episode before I go. Okay, yeah, so there is one more thing that I want to share before I go today, and I want to start talking more about human design in my spaces, just because human design is a tool that I have been using and loving a lot over the past few years. With every tool, it has its limitations, but at the same time, I feel like it has given me so much permission to be and to create in the ways that I feel like creating. It has just validated me so much in how I already know I want to do things, but it's just like an external system that helps me be like, oh, okay, cool. I just got validated. Anyway, it's been really, really helpful. So I want to start talking about that more. And it's relevant here because there's actually a place on your human design chart where, you know what, I will drop a link in the show notes if you want to go look at what your human design is, if you want to get a free chart. So look up your chart, and there's actually a place on your chart that will, in human design world, it will tell you whether you are someone who will thrive off of routines in your life or someone who is more meant to go with the flow and it's not really necessary to have a structured and predictable routine. So go into that link and pull up your chart, and you're going to see that there's the body graph, but then there's near the head of the body, there's 4 arrows. So go ahead and look at these 4 arrows, by the way, are called variables. Excuse me. So look at the top left arrow. The top left arrow is basically how we take in, it's called digestion at least in the resources that I look at, it's referred to as digestion. And it is it will tell you information both about how you are meant to consume information, but also in relevant to today's conversation, it'll also tell you whether you're someone who will thrive on routine or not. And if it's a right facing arrow, that means that routine and predictable structure is not necessary for you, and that you will likely thrive more if you have more fluidity in your days and you just let yourself, I'm not that person, so I don't even know. I just more go with the flow and more experimental and more novelty, things like that. But if you're a left arrow in the top left, if the top left arrow of your chart is pointing left, then you're like me, and you're someone who consistency and structure in your daily routine is super helpful. I'm just on this website called highdefhumans.com, and they have a really good, I'm going to drop this link as well. So for left-facing arrows, for people who are going to thrive off routine like me, this is the description they have. Consistency and structure in your daily routines are helpful for you. You thrive with a predictable and consistent schedule and feel freed up to take on the day when you know what to expect ahead of time. You're also someone who probably can eat the same thing over and over and be totally okay with it. Lean into creating schedules and routines for yourself, because this is supportive for you. You're also able to take in and absorb lots of information very well. I laughed at the part where you can probably eat the same thing over and over and be okay with it, because I literally have like 2 meals that I eat all week because I just don't want to put in that. I just don't enjoy. I mean, I just have other things that I'd rather work on my stuff than cook sometimes. So having just 2 meals, it's like, it's not a problem for me. But yeah, that's just like a thing that you can explore as well, to see what kind of human you are, whether you're someone who will thrive off routine like me or someone who doesn't need it as much. And maybe you're listening to this because you're pressuring yourself to be routine because that's what society has told you have to be. And maybe you'll like look up your chart and be like, oh, I actually don't need it. Okay, great. And it'll just give you the validation that you need. But yeah, for those of us who need routine, again, highly recommend playing with it. And if you don't know how to start, go listen to my other episode, the How to Routine episode. I will also link it in the show. Lots of links today in the show notes. I will also link that. And yeah. And that, I think, my friends, is all for today. I am loving life. I'm thriving. I'm like, you know what? One last thing, actually, before I go. Another thing about consistency and building up routine and stuff is that because like over time it gets easier to do, your capacity to do more things just grows. And like what I was able to hold in routine a month ago, I've like probably quadrupled that amount of things, because anytime I stabilize one thing, I usually stabilize one thing at a time. Anytime I stabilize one thing, it gets easy. And then I'm like, okay, I'm bored. What's next? Let's do more. And then I just add another thing and I stabilize that. And I just keep adding things to my plate that feel fun and exciting and don't immediately just like shock my nervous system and burn myself out. But it's like very sustainable, and like it's like creating foundations and then working in layers. It's just like I'm able to do so much and hold so much, and it feels so good. And especially because in the last week's episode, we were talking about growing our income by growing the amount of responsibility we can hold. It feels related to that, because when I have routine and structure and consistency in place in my life, I feel a lot safer. And then I have the capacity and the space to hold more responsibility. And I feel like I can do it. And because I can do it, then I just like I'm a more responsible human, which is super valuable to me right now, because I honestly believe that responsibility is very important if we're someone who values freedom and personal choice. So yeah, that is where I will leave you today. Thank you so much for listening. If anything resonated with you, I would love for you to like, you know what, like when it comes to my podcast audience, it's so black box. Like I have no idea who listens to this. And so it would be really cool if you listened all the way to the end, if you just sent me a DM, just like with a message that said, I just listened to your podcast. And you don't have to say anything else, but it just like helps me see who's listening. And I would just love that so much and enjoy that so much, to be able to see who I am speaking to. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I love you, and I will see you next week, because I've got a good routine in place, and I can actually say I will see you next week because I feel confident that I will be able to show up next week. Mwah. Oh wait, I know I said I'm gone, but I really forgot this one really important thing that I wanted to say. Well, 2 now. One is that when it comes to routines, like I still implement flow, because when it comes to like, I just say what I want. My routine is based on what I'm going to do. But what I do during those times that I'm saying I'm supposed to do something, like for example, I'm like, I'm going to record a podcast every week. But when I record my podcast, I don't plan it. I just literally come here and talk. And that gives me my hit of flow. You know what I'm saying? Secondly, this is why I came back. It was really important to share. So something that has been really blocking me the last few years is that because I was doing everything just in the moment and just like, not really having a plan of how I want to approach things, every time I had like an emotional wave move through, or I noticed myself get triggered about something, or just emotionally hung up on something, it was really hard for me to move forward because I would be feeling those intense emotions and then I wouldn't have the brain space to be able to figure out what to do next so I could move through. Now that I have a task list and I have my stuff organized, whenever I find myself in an emotional state, like for example, if I published something that I really liked, but it didn't get any engagement and no one cares, that could like hurt my heart sometimes and could make me feel like I don't want to post anything ever again. Fuck the world. I don't care. I don't want to do this anymore. I could be in that state, but then it's really easy for me to get out of that state because all I have to do is go on my task list and be like, okay, well, what's next? All right, let's just like slowly start working on that next thing. And then the feeling dissolves, like the sensations just naturally dissolve and evolve into the next thing, which has been so helpful for the feeling of forward movement as well. But yeah, okay, now I'm gone for real. Love you. Thanks for listening to the end.